Hi, and welcome to the show. Rate and review at kevinmd.com/rate. Subscribe at kevinmd.com/podcast. Today, we welcome back on the show Wendy Schofer. She's a pediatrician. We're talking about her Kevin MD article titled Why Physicians Should Go on a Retreat. Wendy, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to connect with you again.
So, you've been on the show multiple times, but for those who didn't get a chance to listen to our first few episodes together, just briefly share your story and journey to where you are today.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's always a pleasure to be here. And really, I always wonder which version of the story I'm going to tell. But I got to tell you, it's something where I am a practicing pediatrician. I did my early career, my training in the military, and then after my active duty time, I transitioned to the reserves. I proudly say that I just retired from the United States Navy Reserves last year. And so that is a joy in my life. I cannot believe I'm old enough to say that. But now I'm experiencing my practice in the community here in Virginia. Part of it is in the office, part of it is out in the community and with my coaching practice as well. So it's kind of like me, a little bit of everything. And that's how I like it.
So, what's something that's not apparently obvious when it comes to practicing in the military?
Wow, not apparently obvious. I think the biggest saying that we have all the time that others may not always know is the part about how the grass is not always greener on the other side, and it goes both ways. So there are many challenges with being a military physician, having the different constraints within the system, within, the military structure, but we know those same constraints or similar are in the civilian world as well. And so it's funny how I get questions all the time about what's it like on the other side. I'm like, it's just a different flavor. We still have our own issues, whether you're in uniform or out in the civilian world.
So, what are
So,
some examples of some of these constraints within the military?
oh my goodness. So, I mean, like everywhere,
Mhm.
not enough money, not enough personnel, really trying to do as much as humanly possible with as little as humanly possible, which sounds pretty darn familiar for, those in the civilian sector as well. But it's something that we're always trying to do our best. And that's really an ongoing just fact of life in medicine. And so again, it may not sound very different from the civilian world because it truly isn't.
Any lessons that you've taken from your experience in the military into practicing pediatrics in the civilian side?
I think that a lot of the lessons that I learned the hard way in the military are something that are much more clear to me now with experience, but also more so than with my military, or excuse me, more so than with my clinical background. It's about my experience with coaching, and that's about the mindset that we have within different scenarios. And so I remind my husband all the time, who is also a military physician. He continues active duty at this point. I remind him that he is so freaking lucky because he has a very flexible wife. And that wasn't something that I was always so flexible in my approach, because when I left active duty, nothing could stop me. I wanted to leave as fast as humanly possible. And then I came right back just a few months later because I missed it. I realized along the way that it's what we make of it. And it wasn't about, being active duty. It wasn't about the station. It wasn't about the structure of the clinic. It was what I made of it. And so even now, as he continues on his active duty journey, and we don't know exactly where we're going to be for how long, I know that wherever we go, it's going to be the perfect place for us. I know that wherever we go, we will make the best of it. That's something that I take with me in my civilian practice. That's something that I actively practice at home. And it is very helpful in the military when there are a lot of things we don't have control over, but I do have control over how I'm going to approach it. So it's been one heck of a practice opportunity for me to practice mindset tools all along the way.
All right, your Kevin MD article is titled Why Physicians Should Go on a Retreat. Now, tell me, how did this article come together?
Yeah, it actually came together because I finally permitted myself to go on a retreat.
Yeah.
I got to tell you, it's funny coming from the discussion about the military background. I always thought that a retreat was something that was foo-foo and too expensive and not for me. Like that was something that only those other people took. And although I could never describe exactly what those other people looked like or what it was, but I was invited. A friend of mine was hosting a retreat, and it was in Hawaii, and it was with my friend. And so I was like, okay, twist my arm. I have enough reasons here. I'm going to go and do it. And I was so inspired by participating in this retreat. And that's why I really wanted to write the article, because I think that it's something that I got to learn a lot about what's important to me, not just there on site in Hawaii, but what I wanted to take home from Hawaii with me, what I want to incorporate into my everyday, practice, into my everyday perspectives. And
What kind of
that's
retreat was it? How was it billed?
yeah. So my friend Fariel Michaud, she is a palliative care physician and also a fabulous life coach for physicians about living life intentionally. And so it was an approach of introducing folks, or kind of diving a little bit deeper into what does it look like to live life intentionally. That being said, that's all I knew about the retreat. I knew what she was, basically what she was about, what her perspective was as she was inviting people, but there was no set agenda. We would meet up each day, and I knew that there would be some kind of group activities, but there was a lot of opportunity for me to just do what I wanted to do, whatever fueled me. And that was the part that really spoke to me. It was that I wasn't going to be scheduled the entire time. It was an opportunity to go and do what I wanted to. And if I wanted to check out and not go, yeah, absolutely. Bring it on. That's the whole point. It's a choose your own adventure opportunity.
So you were at this retreat in Hawaii. How many other clinicians were there?
I think I said before I don't do numbers. I don't know. I think maybe there was somewhere around a dozen people. I don't know, plus or minus.
And were they all physicians?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep. This was
And
specifically for female physicians.
and while you were in Hawaii in this retreat, tell me some things that you weren't expecting. What surprised you while you were there?
It's funny. The first thing that comes to mind is totally unrelated, but I met John Cena. How about that? Completely awkward moment because I wasn't expecting it, and I got all like fangirl and kind of crushing on him. So totally awkward because of me. But what I wasn't expecting, the most fabulous part of the retreat for me was that I basically stayed on East Coast time. I was really messed up when I got there. And so I would be waking up anywhere between 2 and 4 in the morning. And I would just find myself alone on the balcony, listening to the ocean, drinking my coffee, and then I just go out for a walk in the dark. And it was so valuable to me because I really got to connect with that quiet that I wanted, that peace. And I keep on coming back to a connection to myself. And I have learned over the years that while I love being with other people, I can have a fabulous time and be one of the loudest people in the room. I know that I am actually fueled by quiet and by being with very few people. And so I am grateful that my husband went with me on this trip. He went off and lived his best life golfing while while we were at the retreat, but we got to spend that quiet time together, and it was really meaningful.
So tell me, what specific ways did the retreat change you when you got back?
Yeah. So I think that it's really the opportunity to look at how a retreat is what you make of it. It's not that I have to go off to Hawaii, which I gotta tell you, was fabulous. The sight, the beauty, the sounds, everything is beautiful. It's also really hard to travel that far. Like my
Yeah.
body is like, what are you doing? So I appreciate the opportunity to be able to look at, well, what is it that worked for me there? What is it that retreat mentality offered me? And I come back to how it really was something where I value that quiet, that peace, that opportunity to disconnect, to turn off my phone
Yeah.
and to just walk away from it because nothing else mattered. And how it's so interesting that when I come back home, it's like, oh, got to make sure that I'm staying up on this and that and, checking on my business stuff and schedules and all of that. No, that's a choice. That's a choice I make as far as how much focus I want to put on that, how much I want to bring that into my life versus saying, you know what, it worked for me in Hawaii where I could just retreat, not hiding from it, but deciding that that stayed in one place. Life goes on without me. And so I can still do what fuels me. And then coming, and it's just making me that much, I don't know, stronger, better, a heck of a lot more patient when I have that fuel. And that fuel just for me is the rest, the quiet, the connection with those that I love.
How about the other physicians who were at the retreat? In general, were they burnt out? Were they happy with their careers? What were some of the reasons why they went on the retreat?
To be honest with you, you would have to ask them. I cannot say that this was something that was geared for burnt out physicians or for those who wanted something in particular other than to dive into what it means to live intentionally. I mean, that was the theme. There was no particular objectives. That was actually a funny joke that my husband had asked along the way. So he's used to the discussion about, conferences and CMEs. And he's like, so what are the objectives? And I said, honey, there's no objectives. And even if there were, the magical thing here is that whatever objectives Fariel has for hosting the retreat have nothing to do with my objectives for being there because I'm going to get out of it whatever it is that I need to, which I don't know. I think of that as even like the new version of adult learning for me. Like it's not about what somebody says I'm going to get out of it, it's what I get out of it. And so each of the physicians that participated could have been there for a wealth of different reasons. And I can't speak for them. But I do know that together we all found an opportunity to connect to what was most important for us individually. But it probably looks really different for each person.
So I come across advertisements for a variety of physician only retreats. And you mentioned that your perceptions of retreats have changed. So, as physicians listening to this, as they come across these retreats, what are some misconceptions that you want to potentially clear up?
I would say more than misperceptions, misconceptions, whichever one it is, I would say look at what is it that you want more than anything else. What is it that calls to you? What is it that you want more of? And there's a wealth of different, opportunities that are out there. For me personally, I was looking for something that was meaningful and valuable to me, which that's all my definition, whatever's meaningful and valuable to me. And that could be different at, different parts in my life. It could be very different if I were looking to schedule another one right now versus when I went, I scheduled it over the summer to go in October. But I think that coming back to why I originally didn't think that was for me in the first place, I think that was because I didn't see a retreat as being something for me that or something that I was at a place where I was worthy or needing of it. And for me, it's not about the need. It's not that there was some kind of particular void that needed to be filled. The retreat just helped me connect with What is more important so that I can let that lead the way going forward? And so that's what I use. Other people, I get it. You want to go on maybe something that has a particular theme of adventure, or maybe it is a retreat that's built around a topic. Go for it. It's whatever calls to you.
We're talking to Wendy Schofer. She's a pediatrician, and her Kevin MD article is titled Why Physicians Should Go on a Retreat. Wendy, what are some of your take home messages that you want to leave with the Kevin MD audience?
I think it's just opening up the possibility. What could it look like? What would it look like in this case with a retreat? But I think that the more that we ask ourselves, what is it that is meaningful to me? What is it that I value? What do I want more of in my life? And then give ourselves the opportunity to do that. And so the theme that I keep on coming back to is how I want more connection with what I love, including people, and also connection with myself. And so for me, that's how this retreat was absolutely the answer. For others, it could look a little bit different. But what is it that's most important to you? And then how can you let yourself have more of that?
Wendy, thank you so much for sharing your story time and insight. Thanks again for coming back on the show.
Thank you so much, Kevin. Such a pleasure.